finally sent someone. Son of a bitch. Left me to freeze.
You're gonna
I
freeze.
wish we would see more goddamn
All picked out for you.
good villains. Like, I get Andrew Ryan's like
Andrew's
but he's more of like
more on a first name
he's
basis.
more of like the Moriarty of this game, right? Like he's all exponentialism and philosophy. I wish we had more just ominous, threatening villains that were long term, right?
Yeah, I really wish that. I don't know.
Oh dear.
I think that there are villains in video games that are very well done. Well, you remember, and look, I just want to clarify to people, this project, it fell through. They realized that this wasn't the best plan for them at the time, but they... Ooh, what's Frozen Field?
It replaces static discharge.
That might actually be more effective because then you're not likely to trigger a Big Daddy if you get hit.
Okay.
Like if it's just like frozen. But I was hired on to a game studio, and it was a little startup thing. It wasn't it wasn't huge or anything.
No, like no big like Assassin's Creed or anything like that. No big publishers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even though I think you'd do fine. Like
I want to stay humble and say that you can fire up that door.
that's where we gotta go next. I'm gonna go shove the picture in the frame, but you tell your story, your gaming story.
Well, yeah, like if I were like I was trying to stay as humble as I could, and I was hired on to be the main writer, actually the only writer, really. Although I got tons of feedback, and I was so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for you to hire a writer and just tell them, well, just write. And it's like, well, no, what do you want for this? And so they gave me the key story points, and so I thought, okay, we can expand on this and make it better. And it was a very rewarding experience, but I actually got to write for the main villain of the series, and he was going to be very distant from the protagonist at first.
Yeah.
And he I don't want to give away too much because in the future these plans may start up again.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that we focused more on the villain than we focused on the protagonist. And now granted, we only had this project started for a couple of months, and then we realized it wasn't feasible for us. And so we obviously would have fleshed out the protagonist more. But my main focus was to make sure that if there's going to be a villain, they need to be a good villain.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a good villain, then you don't really have a good protagonist either. At least that's what it feels like to me. And that's what I can appreciate about Bioshock is that although there is a bit of a divisive choice that these writers made in terms of the villain in this game as we continue, they made a lot of good choices. They made far more pragmatic and excellent choices than they did ones that would cause issue for the player.
Okay.
And so, and I think that's very commendable.
I will take your word for that.
Because I would say that in a newer game like Borderlands 3, apparently, now I haven't played the game.
I played the game a little bit, so I can speak to anything.
Yeah, and I was talking to someone who was a massive fan, like just a big fan, like him to, like Borderlands to him is Halo to me. Like he's just obsessed with it. He loves it. It's impacted the way that he looks at the world and creates art, and good on him for that. And he was saying that the villains feel very weak. Yeah. Not in terms of strength or challenge, but just in terms of story and relatability or just character.
Yeah, and I will say that unfortunately, like, most of the time in Borderlands, I've just been smacked. Most of the time in Borderlands, like the who you play as, right? It's usually a blank slate. right? Like their play style is really the only thing that defines them, and then as you go through, you're really more interacting with the world than you are. Than it is like your character is unique and special. At least that's the way it feels to me with the Borderlands series. And in Borderlands 3, it felt like there was so much going on because of Borderlands 1, 2, the pre-sequel, and Tales from the Borderlands, right?
Do you want to...
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, you also got to give him something to look at.
Yeah.
It's okay, continue.
Yeah. So with all of those characters in this one game, like all of that bundled up into Borderlands 3, it felt like there was just too much going on to get that relatable feel for your characters, to actually learn to like your characters. And so that's why I sort of stopped because it was just like...
Yeah. Apparently the side quests were excellent.
It did have some good side quests.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
I think let's not spoil anything, but they very needlessly killed off some characters.
Yes, they did.
And from what I understand, one of the main leads, or at least one of the more impactful characters, was really just a brat. And I would hope that they could try and remedy that through DLCs. I look forward to the DLCs that come out. Yeah. I look forward to playing the game in general, just because I too really enjoy Borderlands.
Yeah, maybe we should do it as a series.
Yeah, and I have a high deal of respect for the creators of it. But I would say that in terms of villains, it's going to be hard to live up to Handsome Jack.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, like, to be fair, that's a high bar to set. Yeah, and you have to give props for them to try and tackle that in general. In fact, it reminds me of another story choice that took place... Okay, yeah, you might want to get out of there. Recently, I was doing a storyboard project, and this storyboard was for Avatar: The Last Airbender. You had to make up a sequence that was predetermined for you, but you had to attempt to draw it out in your own in your own interpretation of the script.
Yep.
And it really got me into Avatar: The Last Airbender. I thought, maybe this is nostalgia, maybe it's overrated. It's overrated in some categories, but all in all, it's a very quality-based show, and so I would really recommend it if you haven't watched it already. But the thing is that a lot of people have an issue with, I suppose you could refer to it as, I guess, the sequel series. I was going to say sister series, but that's not. Yeah.
Okay.
And what a lot of people did not like is, and I'll spare the juicy details, but they gave an origin to where the Avatar came from, and a lot of people didn't like that because in the original, it showed Aang and he was seeing all the avatars before, and it was just this like mile-long line of like these warriors, and it's like, dude, the Avatar is so old, you don't know how old he is. You don't know how long he's been.
Yeah.
Maybe he just came with the world itself.
So
maybe
what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that Legend of Korra introducing the origin of the Avatar was kind of like them putting midichlorians to the Force. Like
exactly. That's the main comparison. That's the main comparison that they made. They also gave an origin to bending, but this is circling back to Borderlands, where I don't wholeheartedly agree with that decision, but what I will give props, I will give props to the writers in that was a challenge that they took upon themselves. And they thought, how can we expand the world? How can we make the world feel more real and more genuine and more fleshed out? And again, I don't fully agree with that choice.
Yep.
But just because I don't agree with something does not mean I hate it. And it doesn't mean that it deserves an overwhelming amount of scrutiny, because that's not how you build. That's not how you make something better. No, it's just by burying it in anger and hate and whatnot.
That's the problem with most people's criticisms on. I'm gonna leave this place because I feel like we're not in the right spot. We're looking for the records place. Remember that place we got?
Oh, that room we got trapped in.
We gotta find that, and I thought it was back there, but
it's in the main atrium, I think.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah, where that stairwell comes.
Okay. Anyways, one of the main problems I feel like with the sequel trilogy in Star Wars is that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's terrible, do it again. And that made me angry when I saw people petitioning to redo the movies. It's like, no offense, but fuck you guys. Like, serious to God, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, that you would...
I could do it better.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And there were people coming up with better scripts and stuff, and it's like, congratulations, but like...
Yeah. What I will say, though, playing devil's advocate, I am a part of those people that think, not that I could do it better, but just I would like to take my own shot at it.
Yeah. You want to do some hacking? Because these safes do have money in them.
Do you want to just use your auto hacks?
We only have 2.
And you can buy it out if you want.
Yeah, so this one's easy.
And that's the thing. I don't think I can do it better. I don't think I'm the next George Lucas or any pompous ideology such as that. It's just, I thought it'd be fun. I really like Star Wars. I personally like the comics more than the movies themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's based mainly on the unfair advantage that the comics have and that they have more content to share.
Yeah.
And so I would say that it's certainly... oh, man. Yeah. That's certainly where a lot of my love for that franchise comes from, and where a lot of my writing would be impacted in that.
Yeah.
But I think it's very... I think also it was needlessly cruel the way they went after the actors and actresses. That was just ridiculous.
What was that about?
Well, that was just people who just don't have lives, and so they just...
And so what? They think no one else should either? Like...
Well, that's exactly my point. Is that they're just resentful, and so they just think, oh, well, the actors and actresses are to blame. When no, in reality, it's a whole bunch of people who are to blame for a big mess. But that's the thing. That's how productions work.
Yeah.
They can very, very easily fall apart. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, especially when... And a lot of people say, oh, well, films were better back in the day. Yeah, films weren't as nearly complex.
No,
they were not nearly as complex. There was not as many moving parts.
There was also
and that's something that a lot of people don't consider. And
there was also a lot more criticism, or a lot less criticism on films back in the day, right? Look at the Die Hard trilogy, right? The first Die Hard movie, rather.
The Christmas trilogy.
Yeah, it's filled with like...
Is that a little sister?
Was it? Whoa, no, it wasn't. That scared the
No, the Big
shit
Daddy
out
up
of
the
me.
stars. Because I know there's some big little sisters.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yep.
Hold on.
Is he gonna glitch like he did on the stairs?
Maybe. Actually, hold on. Before we get him going, let's...
You know you could freeze him in liquid nitrogen. You haven't used that weapon very often.
No, I don't, because I don't know what it's for.
But anyways, the Die Hard series.
The Die Hard series. If you go back and look at it and hold it to modern standards, is it really as good as people say it is, right? Or is it just a little bit of, like you were saying with Avatar? Is it just nostalgia?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's still people who sit down and watch that every year for a Christmas movie, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people just need to realize that movies are movies. If you didn't find them entertaining, like, you spent the money for the ticket, or just suck it up, move on. I'm sorry. Like, they're not gonna redo it just for you.
But that's the thing. Like, I think there are some movies that have some very deceitful marketing, and there's a lot of issues, and there's a lot of things that need to be changed and rearranged.
Oh, here we go. I ran past
But
actually,
but
before we do this, I am going to let you finish your story.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to cut the episode off. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, the point is, I think it's good that the writers they at least attempted to take on those villains. But I was actually going to ask you, like, what's a Christmas movie that you watch every year?
One of the old ones, and again, it's purely for nostalgia reasons. Like the old stop motion, or whatever you would call it, Rudolph.
Oh, that
right?
creepy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, that fucking snowman scared me.
It is creepy.
Not the snowman, the ice boy, the Yeti.
Oh, yeah.
Like that thing. Ah! Cut it off there.